And here we go with the third Siebel Friday of 2023. Yeah, it's been a quarter of a year already, and there have been a lot of things that go on in the Siebel space. So let me just start sharing and give you an introduction, an idea of what we are planning for today. Okay. So that is, you see my screen? Yeah, all right.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thanks. All right. So I have some notes here, a quick agenda, and you see that, well, first of all, of course, it's the 23.3 update, what we have learned so far from the March update of Siebel CRM. Then there's a plan. We have two guest speakers. Jason from American Airlines. I'm not sure if he joined yet, but he will. And I'm very proud to have István and Andreea from the Hungarian endoIT Hungary, and they will present us a very exciting presentation on modernizing Siebel UX. So thanks very much, István and Andreea, for joining. And after endoIT, there will be some other news, like you have seen on the list. Oracle has again increased Premier support for Siebel, and some other news around Siebel and cloud. So Andreea is asking me, Andreea from Oracle, asking, can you be first? Okay, you're under pressure.
I think you have a very busy Siebel agenda, so I would like to inform you on Applications Unlimited, what we stand for, and to welcome you at CloudWorld. I don't have any slides so this time, but I'll prepare some for next time if need be. So I'm part of Applications Unlimited team from Western Europe. We are designed to support our on-premise customers to continue their journey using our products, our Oracle products, and to support them whether they want to move to Oracle Cloud infrastructure, adopt cloud solutions, or upgrade and innovate the best they can with our product, with on-premise products, and in this particular situation, Siebel. We are seeing many projects rolling, especially in countries like Germany. France is getting stronger, and United Kingdom as well. I have been with Oracle for 15 years now in the application business, all of my life in the on-premise business, and I'm part of this team with a strategic role to support the partners and drive through the partners events and go-to-market initiatives. I welcome you to meet us in London. We have a booth at CloudWorld, and we have Siebel experts ready to speak to you. Richard Sperman, Buyar, they are part of our solution engineering team. And as well, I'm hoping to have Siebel Hub there with us. Alex, I know you cannot join, but hoping that Richard Napier will be able to come with us. We have a Genius Bar where we do demos. We speak to you on any challenges you have on Siebel, and eager to meet you there. During the day, of course, April 19th. So,
okay.
If you want to add anything to that, let me know, and I'll be happy to share my contact with everyone here in the call for any partner-related, licensing-related question, or even product. So, any connection to the product team within Oracle, I can make that happen.
Okay, that's wonderful, Andreea. Thanks very much for this. Big shout out for, as Andreea said, for the CloudWorld tour. The date in London is 19th April, and we will come back to this after again at the end of the session, so that everybody is reminded well. All right.
Perfect. And drop them my business card, so virtual business card. I'll send it over to. I'm there, so
Yeah, you can.
LinkedIn, WhatsApp, whatever, and I will connect you to the Siebel folks that are present at CloudWorld.
You might just put whatever you feel necessary in the chat, Andreea.
Sure.
Yeah, and then people can pick it up from there.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thanks very much, Andreea. And
my pleasure.
So let's then get back to Siebel 23.3 or forward, as most of you will. It's the latest Siebel update, and it was a one single feature update. The one feature is a new wizard in Web Tools, and most notable, there are various updates and improvements to the documentation, Siebel Bookshelf, and Tomcat got also an update after quite a long hiatus of Tomcat updates. We have 9.070, which the security people, of course, will be most interested in, as usual. That wizard, to put it brief, if you have 23.3, post-install database update, no repository upgrade are required, and then you will see in your object wizard selection in Web Tools, you'll see a new EIM table mapping wizard, which is, of course, a well-known wizard to those who used it in Siebel Tools. It's still in Siebel Tools like any other wizard, but now you can run it from Web Tools too. And if you look into the documentation for that, there is an interesting note, and I couldn't just hold myself back to screenshot that note and pointed out that a notice in the bookshelf guide, because EIM interface tables, of course, is schema related, and you would have to lock a project to this, they're not yet workspace enabled. And there's a note there that when tables have been workspace enabled, projects will be removed. So the whole project locking will go away. That's what I read from this. And when tables have been workspace enabled, that means there's at least some very high likelihood that tables are going to be workspace managed in the future. Of course, not in 23.3 to make that clear. So I just noticed this in Bookshelf, and it's very interesting to see this kind of notes and also this kind of information in the Bookshelf guide. And speaking of Bookshelf, there is a very good rewritten or maybe new chapter, I'm not sure, about the application interface architectures. To date, the most detailed information that is on the public internet about the internal architecture, so to speak, of the AI. And that, of course, is worth a read and worth a check out if you're interested in that area. It's in the new or 23.3 and higher systems administration guide. And speaking of Bookshelf, that has another guide added to it, a new guide, which existed only on support prior to this version, and now the Siebel Cloud Manager guide is public, so everybody can read up on what is Siebel Cloud Manager, how does it work, and that of course is very exciting to people who are on the bleeding edge of Siebel and want to understand what Oracle's plans are and Oracle's products are to support Siebel customers migrating to OCI. And that, of course, Siebel Cloud Manager Bookshelf Guide prompts us at the Siebel Hub Learning Experience to revisit that. We have discussed Cloud Manager in previous Siebel Fridays, so just a quick reminder, if you're new to Siebel Cloud Manager, it can support basically 3 major use cases. First of all, the very famous lift and shift on-prem to OCI. Yeah, well, lift and shift of a Siebel CRM enterprise. and also greenfield deployments directly on OCI, install a new Siebel vanilla or sample database, along with a Siebel enterprise, and the ongoing maintenance of the enterprises that are created through Cloud Manager. The very interesting part is that the target architecture is managed by Oracle Kubernetes engine or Kubernetes cluster, even if it's the traditional Siebel CRM architecture. That is, you still have your AI and Siebel servers and gateways, but they're now, stateful sets to be more exact. It's not pods. And Cloud Manager also supports the component services architecture, which is still in beta as of now, as I understand. And the second most important thing to understand is that the configuration of the enterprise has been moved away from, let's say, Cloud Manager or the usual Server Manager interfaces to GitOps-based enterprise configuration using YAML and GitLab, so-called Helm charts that you edit, and you change the number of servers that you want, or even the version, and Flux and Helm and will apply to the cluster. So that's really exciting. So there's a lot of things going on with Cloud Manager, a lot of new things that get introduced. And good to know that on the Siebel Hub Learning Experience, we have just published our latest course module on Siebel Cloud Manager. So that is, of course, worth a look if you're interested in learning more about Siebel Cloud Manager. So it's available standalone as a single module video training, or as part, of course, of the Siebel 23 Plus workshop. If you buy the entire workshop, get a 1-year subscription, and then you get the always up-to-date training guarantee from the Siebel Hub. All right. Yes, so there is a natural break here as we have reviewed 23.3. Is there anything anyone would like to add? There are questions in the chat from Juris and Alok. Maybe somebody wants to pick them up from Brian, maybe?
Yep. Let's see here.
You can see the questions from Juris and Alok?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. The question from yours was, is there still no event-driven pub sub Kafka? That is, it's currently available in beta and will be released, I can't give specifics, but let's say within the next couple of months.
Okay, couple months.
And by couple, I mean so either April or May would be my current expectation. But the usual disclaimer applies there. But that's the schedule on that. But for people who are interested in looking at it, it is available in beta now. Mm-hmm. The next question from Alok being server manager will be replaced by blah blah. No, not at this time. That I think was Alex, what you said. That was in context of running Siebel in OCI with using Kubernetes, et cetera, to be able to manage your environment. So this is talking about a different kind of architecture than your standard on-premise.
Yes. So the architecture that Siebel Cloud Manager creates, essentially, that is organized by YAML files in GitLab.
There's a neat, there's a great example of this. There's a training class out there somewhere, or no, it's a product director, customer connect, or whatever we're calling it this year, where we record these sessions and have to customers that I gave a while back on rolling updates to Siebel CRM. So the idea being you're on 22.1, you want to go to 23.3, and you don't want any downtime. So there's a presentation out there on that. I don't know if we've talked about that here before or not, but it exists. the reason I bring it up now is that for purposes of that presentation, one of the engineers helped me put together a live demo of how we could actually do that. So you're able to actually update a production environment with no complete downtime, which is cool stuff if you haven't heard about it. But anyway, as part of that demo, he demos it using the Siebel Cloud Manager and the YAML and all that, so that he can, because it's a lot faster. There's some huge benefits to it. So you can, I'll hunt that down, Alex, to your question. I'll hunt down the link to it. I'm sure John Becker has it handy somewhere. So not only does it show a very useful thing, which is the rolling updates, but also like it illustrates what we mean by using the YAML and GitOps type of thing, and how you can. I mean, it's really pretty amazing in that you can, using containerization and the YAML files, you can actually change from a 22.12 to a 23.3, for example, binary version in a matter of seconds. It's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Then and I'll get you a link, Alex. You can share it.
Okay, thanks much.
And then the others are not really. Yeah. Okay.
No,
go ahead.
I think that's the answer to the questions from Juris and Alok. Yeah. Okay, so exciting times for Siebel in the cloud ahead. I see that Jason has not joined today, so we'll just put him on the, let's say, backseat for now. And yeah, so I would like to hand over the session to István and Ernő from endoIT. Yeah, yeah, brace yourself, buckle in. That's a great presentation. So István, yeah, you please.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, István,
Okay.
my bad.
Yeah.
Now it should work. Okay, there you go.
Okay, so you can see it. Great. Yeah, so again, thanks for this opportunity. Today I'm going to present a little bit uncommon level of OpenUI customization, which brings a modern look and a welcome user experience inside Siebel. And I want to present and discuss some of the technical details that enable this solution. But first, please allow me to introduce us a little bit, because most of you may have never heard us before. We are a boutique enterprise IT consultancy from Hungary with over 15 years of experience in Siebel and IT consulting. We are providing Siebel development, maintenance, and upgrade services with other vendors or directly to Siebel users. We are not picky in this regard. And currently we are active in the financial and telco industries. Our mission is bringing modern user experiences and user interfaces to Siebel, which is not surprisingly the topic of this presentation. We believe that existing Siebel installations represent a vast investment and should deserve more attention on the UI front. And the solution that I'm going to present today might be a little bit on the extreme side of customization, but we aim to demonstrate the limitless possibilities of OpenUI with this. Also, besides our commercial services, we also try to give back something to the Siebel community. We have received so much goodies that we felt that we should contribute back. Some of you may have already heard about our Siebel script and web template editor, VS Code plugin, or the Siebel utility app, which is a useful tool to manage Siebel servers. They are both available for free, and you can get them on our website, or if you haven't heard about them, then you can either check our website or Siebel Hub. Alex had some good and nice videos and write-ups for both. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is a solution that was created to address the requirements of A1 Croatia. Now this presentation will only focus on the technical aspects. If you are interested in the background story or some business details, then please check the link on our website. This framework is not really a framework like, you know, Angular or React or these other large web application frameworks. It cannot be, because we have OpenUI in the back, which already provides a lot of functionalities, and every Siebel customization needs to use it to stay compatible. This framework is more like a set of loosely coupled tools to enable modern web development practices and to bridge OpenUI with a custom renderer front end. This was built organically, and it only supports features that the solution required. We didn't implement anything just for the sake of it might be useful sometime in the future. We kept to this you ain't gonna need it principle strictly, but it doesn't mean that the code is not structured, or it's actually quite carefully architected, and it was always refactored when it became necessary. It's just that we didn't over-engineer to support hypothetical scenarios ahead of time. Okay, so yeah, this framework and the solution you will see shortly, I promise, focuses on the presentation and visualization of data. Because, you know, people dealing with customers who are actually the users of CRM systems, like Siebel, spend a surprising amount of time to learn about the customer before engaging into the actual transaction. And nowadays there's an overwhelming amount of information in these systems, and processing and aggregating, displaying them in a digestible form is a win for everyone, because users can get to the transaction quicker. It reduces transaction time, and yeah, it's good. On the other hand, this framework does very little to Siebel data capture. Actually, it's mostly kept as is. Siebel's data capture via forms and grids list applets are maybe not perfect, but they are good enough. They are robust and work very well. And this is the most important when you need to capture data. We did some styling, you will see that also, and a few progressive enhancements and custom web templates for form applets to give them some facelift and to make them truly responsive. Okay, and the last point is, yeah, this is not low code. So what you will see is a bunch of code actually. This framework is not a Swiss Army knife. It's a foundation, and you can imagine it like an empty canvas and a lot of painting tools. If you know what you want to achieve, then you will be able to do it, but it won't draw some pretty picture by itself. Okay, enough talk. Let's see it in action. I will show you a short video which was recorded from a development environment. All data is made up and randomized, so nothing is to be seen there. But the video was edited a little bit to improve its pace, but otherwise it's the real thing. It doesn't capture the standard Siebel frame, so you need to use your fantasy to imagine the tabs, the toolbar, thread bar, and menu bar at the top of the screen. But yeah, okay. It won't be as smooth as it's in real life, but yeah, this is the nature of meetings. Okay, let's do it. So this is the main user dashboard, where you can already see that a lot of data is fetched in the background. You can also observe how visual this solution is. It uses a lot of charts and other easy to grasp data. This view, the next view, is the customer selection. You can see here how form and list applets coexist with custom rendered things. And this is another view which follows a similar design. And this is the opportunity dashboard. This again mixes old and new stuff. It has a lot of visualizations, but there is not much data, so it's not as good as it could be. And here you can see an interesting method for opportunity creation with drag and drop. Just dropping an existing product line creates a new opportunity, and you can set details by simply changing numbers. It will calculate the total and average on the fly. the browser in a very responsive way. And yeah, the one last thing that I want to show you is this activity timeline, which is used to track the user's customer related activities. It uses infinite scrolling, even there is not much data here. And one final detail, how to show how that's to the overall user experience. When drilling down, you see that the target is highlighted with this orange accent, which is nothing special, but when you go back, then the original entry will flash briefly to help orienting the user. Okay, so that's the end of the video. It might be a bit dense, but I promise we will go over the important bits now. Okay. I think first we should take a look at this this screenshot, because I know some of you might already ask what is an applet here and what the hell is this? It's probably not trivial, but here you can see 8 applets in total. There is one at the top which says this Joe Beltran workspace, workplace, this bell icon, which is actually a custom rendered list applet and will show its contents when it's open. And then all this, just a question, do you see my mouse cursor as well? Because I'm
yeah, yes, we can see.
Okay. So it makes sense to move it around the screen. Okay. And then all these 5 tiles are actually applets, and this is the 8th one here at the right. So actually the basic Siebel building blocks are in place. So this is a normal Siebel application. It has the applets, it has the business components, view, and everything which makes up a Siebel screen. But the difference is that it uses some custom presentation, and it has a very heavy reliance on synchronous data fetching, but I will talk about that later. Our solution is relying on Mi3.js. It's not a very common or very known library. It's you can think of it like a very, very small React, maybe. It has a virtual DOM solution, and this is used by almost everything in our implementation. We have simply chosen Mi3 because we already had experience with it from a completely unrelated native web development project. And its virtual DOM and component implementation is relatively easy to understand, and it's also very small and very fast. So that's the basic building block of our solution. But we only use the rendering part, and other features like routing and the rest is data binding is not used because we didn't. Routing you cannot use because OpenUI already does that for you, and data binding was simply not. We didn't feel it necessary for this kind of read-only presentations. We use this virtual DOM because it makes life a lot easier, because in this solution you have seen that we have a lot of asynchronous data fetches, and if you want to update some part of an applet, then it's not that easy, because you need to find what has changed and update it. It's either slow or inefficient, or it's a lot of code to do. And the virtual DOM just solves this problem, because you don't need to care about what changed. You always render everything that you can, and the Mi3 will just take care of that and only change only update the changed parts in the HTML, and this performs very well. Really, we tried it on some truly potato mobile phones, and it was still very fast. The only challenge was maybe bridging Mithril and OpenUI, but this actually turned out to be relatively easy. We just tied into OpenUI's events, which are sent when the applet needs to be refreshed. We just listen to them and then redraw the applet. Basically, that's it. At the core, we have a few base PMs and PRs to build on top of OpenUI's standard applet PMs and PRs. These provide a very thin abstraction layer between native OpenUI objects and our custom code. The reason was to, if ever something changes or you know, an upgrade changes something, we are not anticipating it, but you never know, then we only need to fix it in one place and not in the entire application. These base PMs and PRs give an interface to interact with the applet methods, controls, user properties, which are, by the way, a pretty nice thing to, if you want to alter some way of how the applet works without changing the code or creating a subclass. And yeah, actually the rendering is done in the custom sub PR, which creates the VDOM using Mithril, and it's drawn either in place of the original Siebel applet or in some different container, depending on whether it needs to be kept or not. I won't go into many details here, just really want to highlight shortly which tools we used and why we have chosen them. For charting, the priorities were clearly size of library and to have little or no external dependencies. And also we preferred SVG output because it's easier to style, it's part of the DOM, and we can use CSS to change how it looks. And it also scales natively because it's vector graphics. Yes, and this was a few years back, so Internet Explorer 11 support was also important back in the day. We used this Morris.js for most of the charts, for lines, bars, and donuts. This library is not really maintained anymore, but we checked the code. It's relatively simple to maintain if it breaks. Although we are not expecting it to break because the code is okay. It doesn't contain anything which is expected to break by browser evolution. It has a dependency on Raphael, which is a rather large library, but yeah, such is life in JavaScript world. For the hierarchical charts, we have chosen Triant.js, which is a quite mature library. It uses an interesting mix of SVG and normal DOM objects. It depends on jQuery, but that's part of OpenUI anyway, so it's not a problem. Its only maybe issue is that it doesn't look very good out of the box, but it can be fixed easily. We use two other external libraries. One is jQuery Circle Progress. This is a no-brainer. This is less than 6 kilobytes compressed, so yeah, it's yeah. We use it for this kind of a visualization of progress and percentage data. We also used chart.js at one point. Actually, we ran into some issue with Morris. It couldn't render these negative values as we wanted. And yeah, chart.js was already there. It was used by some other code, and yeah, we were lazy and we didn't fix Morris. We just went with JS. It's actually not bad, but it's canvas based, and it's a bit more work to style it to match the rest of the application. And yeah, all other visualizations that you have seen, the timeline, we had the sales funnel pipeline and a lot of other things were really custom made for this solution. And they are built with just standard DOM elements and CSS. Okay, now this this is probably the most complicated part of this entire framework, but this was a key enabler for the solution, this asynchronous request module, which allows concurrent queued and prioritized data fetching from the Siebel server using either Siebel Business Services or EAI or REST. This was extremely important for user experience. You have probably seen that we did a lot of data requests, and some of these data fetches are pretty complex and relatively slow. If this has been done in the traditional way using business components, then the view would take tens of seconds to load every time, and until that time the user cannot do anything with Siebel because it's blocking the entire UI, and this is just simply not acceptable. You cannot have good user experience with a slow application. It's just it's a fact. Okay, this will be another very short clip. I just want to demonstrate the benefits of the asynchronous data requests. This dashboard view uses a lot of complex data. You've already seen it. It's which is relatively slow to load, and that's why we had to do this in parallel. You can see here, you will see that the request is not blocking the UI. The user can drill down to a different view while the data is still fetching there. And this view is interesting because we can see caching in action. These bar charts use the same data that the previous view needed. And when we go back, then we don't have to wait again to load this because the framework catches the data, and the missing data revenue and the revenue forecast is already present there without waiting for any responses from the server. Okay, so how does it work? Yeah, so basically everything starts with the user who is going to a new view, and the view starts composing itself. It starts initializes the applets, and the applets send their data requests to the framework to fetch the data from Siebel. This the asynchronous module, which takes care of this, will either return a cached response, as you have seen previously, or it will add the requests to an internal queue and return a promise. Remember, this all happens on the client side, so we are within the applet PM mostly, yes, because the PM takes care of the data. Yeah. Until the data is available, the applets will render some placeholder, which is this rotating loader animation that we have seen from the clips. And when the view is completely loaded, it will trigger the post-load event, and the asynchronous module will then start processing the requests which have been collected between the preload and post-load events. This is done in a way because then it has all the requests, and then it can prioritize which one is more important and load them first. But the main point is that now the user can already interact with the UI, and they can perform tasks like drilling down or see what's already there and then work with that. And yeah, we are not blocking the UI. We can just work on getting the data. Okay, so then the framework will get the request from the queue and send it to the Siebel server, and when the data is available, then it will resolve the promises and send the response back to the applet, which will then simply just read the row itself, and now it can render the actual data. It should be there on the applet. This is actually quite simple when we look at this way, but in the real world, this is a bit more complex because we have multiple queues, we have data caching, error handling is always hard to do correctly, and there is also request combining. So if, for example, 2 or 3 applets want the same data, then the framework will only send one request to the server and will send the response, the same response to all three applets. So it's a pretty big, pretty not big but pretty complex part of the framework. And yeah, we had quite a lot of challenges by doing this, so it might be useful if someone else is toying with the idea to to do the same. Actually, the biggest problem was that you cannot call business services in parallel. You can call business services asynchronously, and it will not block the Siebel UI. But if you call like 3 business services, then they will just stay in a queue and be executed in series in the Siebel server. I understand why it's doing that way. So the architectural thinking behind that is completely clear, but we just had to, you see, we pull a lot of data and we had to do it in parallel. We couldn't wait for it to be done in series. So yeah, we turned to the next best thing, which was EAI and REST. Actually, by the time we made this solution, it was EAI because it was IP16 and there was no REST support back then. But this brought another issue because without SSO, these interfaces have no idea who is the end user, and that can be a big security issue with sensitive data. So we had to bake some custom authentication code and put it into the process. I will talk about this a bit later. Another issue may be that with all these parallel requests from the clients, you can easily overload the endpoints, and therefore we have some limits in the client side to not send too many parallel requests at a time, but also some server-side throttling is also a good idea in such cases. Now the next challenge was that some requests must be prioritized, because everything that the user does, like clicks on something and it needs some data from Siebel, has to have priority because the user clicked there, so the user is interested in that data. Also, standard OpenUI server communications must take priority because, you know, query and the navigation and committing data and everything sends data to the server, and if they are not processed in time, then this will block the UI, and it's not a good user experience. It makes the application feel sluggish. And actually, OpenUI server calls use the same queue as the business service calls, and that's why it's a bad idea to just simplify off 3 business service calls, because when you send them, the Siebel server will process them in series, but when the user maybe wants to navigate away, then it needs to wait for all 3 business service calls to finish before the navigation starts. So it's not a good idea. Our solution only sends 1 business service call at a time, and so the OpenUI has some time slots to insert their calls into the not really into the queue, because it doesn't go into the framework's queue, but they will just stick in between the framework calls. Caching. Caching is very important because some of this data takes quite some time to load, and if we wouldn't cache it, then it would cause a lot of strain on the server, and it would be slow, because we don't need to fetch like revenue data all the time. It doesn't change. It only changes like once per month. So at least we should keep it in cache for the time the session is alive. Caching is a challenge of its own. There are a lot of articles on the internet. We really just use the simple scheme, and we just discard cache data when we see the chance that it might have changed. And yeah, it's simply stored in JavaScript memory, so it's lost after logoff or when the page is reloaded. But this is a deliberate decision, because if some data gets stuck for some reason because we haven't invalidated the cache, then the user can just hit refresh and it will make sure that there is no stale data in the cache. Okay, yeah, and the last point. You have seen me fetch data, but that's really only important to the user until he doesn't navigate away from the view, because on the next view that data might not be there, so it makes no sense to wait for it to complete. So the framework has a way to bound these requests to certain objects like applets or views, and if these bound objects are discarded because, for example, the user navigated away, then it will just cancel the request and go on with the new ones. Of course, this is not always the case, because sometimes these requests are not depending on any object, but yeah. And yes, yeah, this was an interesting topic. As I said, we had to work with IP16, and we only had EAI and anonymous EAI. We had no SSO. I'm not even sure if we can have SSO with the EAI. Probably not. But sorry, I'm mostly the front-end guy, not the back-end. So pardon me if I say something not incorrectly. But yeah, we actually worked around this by using a helper business service, which we call within the actual interactive Siebel session. So when we need to make a request towards EAI, oh sorry, this is pretty hard to pronounce for Hungarian, or a REST endpoint which doesn't have SSO, then we will check if we have a valid token, and this valid token is actually the same that Siebel uses in the interactive web session. And if we think that this token is not validated, then we will authorize it using this helper business service, which, as I said, runs in the interactive web session. So it does know everything about the user it has to. And this will store the token, the username, position, expiration, and all other information which is required later to identify who is trying to get data from EAI using this token. And when we need to get data from EAI, then we send this token along with the request, and that EAI service dispatcher will validate the token and get the access rights of that user from an administrative table, which is also a custom table, because yeah, you cannot just emulate the entire Siebel, you know, responsibility and position. You cannot just use it. It's too big. So it's a smaller subset, but it actually applies some filters on the return data. So unauthorized data should not leak out to the user. Okay, we also have some, well, it's code report, but it's more like printable summary. So this is not something that will replace BI Publisher, don't worry. This is all done on client side, and the purpose is to be able to generate at any time some creatable summary. I will show you an example. In this case, this was used to generate a customer summary, And the report opens in a new browser tab and loads data from Siebel, generates the report, which is actually just a print optimized HTML, so nothing really special. You see it has all sorts of data from the customer, but this is all defined in the reports code. No customizations are possible by the end user, so it's not like a big reporting library where you can create your own reports or something. And when it's ready, then the user can either print it or save it as a PDF using Microsoft PDF Printer or Chromium's native PDF export feature. Okay, I don't want to talk too much about this. Basically, the interesting bit was the communication between the report tab, which is a new browser tab, so it doesn't have OpenUI or Siebel behind it, and the Siebel server. So basically, there is a two-way communication between the two tabs, and uses the window post message API to send the data and requests back and forth between the two browser tabs. And finally, we have a gamification engine which can do almost real-time updates of personal performance metrics. Here's a screenshot of it. There are predefined user ranking criteria, view live statistics, and users can earn badges. And there is also a list of competing people. Actually, the interesting part here was that we had to do this while not slowing down the normal operation. So it uses a queue on the Siebel server and some synchronous background jobs to calculate the scores. And yeah, we have a ranking engine and a ranking configuration with a dedicated administration screen, and this is all stored in the Siebel database. So later, business can abuse this this kind of ranking for all purposes that they want. Okay, I think this was a bit longer than expected, so I just leave it here. This will go to YouTube anyway, so you can read this, and I think I will just give back control to Alex now. Thanks for your attention.
Okay. Wow, thank you very much, István. That was truly impressive. So please make some noise for István and for endoIT for sharing this with us today. I'm sure there will be, let's say, lots of follow-up comments and questions there. Christian says, wow, cool feature, impressive. Okay, yeah, there's a lot to.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, there's a lot. You had a very, let's say, dense presentation, as you said. It had a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of topics and
yeah. So you see, enjoy the yeah. We really appreciate you guys giving feedback to István. This is really great, and yeah, we're just about to get started, maybe in a new era of Siebel UX with the possibilities that you have today in Siebel OpenUI. And let's see what the future brings. Of course, I can only speculate. And let me quickly share my screen before I give over to Jason. So we have, yeah. So this was our first special guests, and now we have another special guest, of course, a regular here at the Siebel Friday, Jason from American Airlines. And yeah, Jason, if you're ready, I can just make you presenter.
All right, and I'll apologize in advance. I've got to join another meeting in just a few minutes, but
Okay.
I'll discuss it at least at a high level and see what we can do there. So just a moment. Okay.
What do you have for
All right. Well, inspired in part by Alex's contributions to DevPops and this need to give back, I shared publicly a utility that we recently rolled out internally that Alex correctly characterized as change records on steroids. The official version is called a data update admin view, but it was born out of this need to make updates to data records in Siebel that come from our business stakeholders, at least in my world, a couple of times a week. We may need to update something in the back end when it comes to a handful of records or perhaps thousands of records. And if you're supporting your business like my team does, you've probably found that the fastest way is to create a SQL statement out of it and run it, which, as we all know, is not advisable, not supported, all that good stuff. There are some other methods, and perhaps the most supported, most obvious one might be just to provide a nice list view with lots and lots of fields available on the list columns and the list applet, and be able to make those updates from there and just have them query for them and make those updates. But that's not always feasible to expose every field on every business component within every business object that might be sitting in your business object layer. And so what I provided was a view into that business object layer. And so what we have very quickly, and of course, my screen sharing version of this instance isn't 100% working, but what it allows us to do is select the business object, the business component, and fields that we want to update. So it looks like it might be hung up just a little bit, but I've typed in employee. It introspects everything, not just in a DR environment, but also your runtime environment. And from there, you can then select your business component. And once you've selected that and it resolves, you see what the columns are. Some people think in terms of columns, other people think in terms of the fields. The pop-ups constrain by the business component that you've selected to show base columns or base column-based fields. So if there's something that you need to go in and update in mass, up to 10,000 records, in this mode, what we can do is provide an explicit list of row IDs, say 0-1. If we want to change Siebel administrator's first name, perhaps we can do that, although I've not yet tried it and it may not let you. But what you're essentially working with, though, in this case is the updates specifically by row IDs. There is another mode that's available that may not appear to be working in this instance of my configuration all of a sudden, but if you hit the drop down, you can then specify additional fields to query for the records that you want to update. In that mode, it assumes that you need to set all of those records to a created, created date's probably not a good example, but you want to update something about all those records, and you can select up to 4 fields to update. So anyway, if you're interested, I encourage you to check out the repo for it. There are some notes here, but I think you might find it interesting in a way that, at least with a little bit of help from IT, that the business can start to self-serve and making some of these data corrections themselves. All right.
Okay, that was a quick one, yeah. So thanks much, Jason. Yeah, please give Jason a hand for this, and thanks for keeping up the spirit and sharing things, the useful things. It's on the Black Sheep GitHub, so you have the link in your chat. Thanks very much, Jason.
All right, my pleasure.
Okay, I understand you need to go.
Yes, I need to drop, but thank you so much.
Yeah.
I enjoy these monthly meetups. It's a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, thanks so much. Okay. All right, so Wow, that's a dense Siebel Friday if there is any. So again, let's see. Yeah, so here I've just put up the Black Sheep GitHub. As a reminder, we are open anytime for if you want to share something with the community, like endoIT does on their GitHub, or Jason just did through Black Sheep. And yeah, if you have anything to share with the community, let me know and we'll put it up. And of course, you get a slot on the Siebel Friday on one of the next Siebel Fridays to present your solution. And so here we have a few more things before we go. So the first one is good news, of course, in March, like at least the last 2 or 3 years, every March, Oracle takes on the premier support date under scrutiny, and at least until this year, there is an extension for another year, and this is now until December 2034, or 1234, as I like to call it. That's the premier support for Siebel CRM on continuous innovation release. So good to know the usual places have been updated on the Oracle website. And yeah, we have already mentioned, Andreea has mentioned the CloudWorld tour. So the link is here. That's a series of events in across the world. Literally, the event in EMEA is in London on 19th April. The Siebel Hub is trying to be there. So Richard will, based in the UK, he will try to be there if you want to meet up. And of course, if you want to meet up the Applications Unlimited team, the Siebel team, that is for the chat. So Angelos has just put out a link to the Apps Unlimited letter. Thank you, Angelos. Yeah. Okay, and speaking of Siebel in the cloud, so CloudWorld prompted us that we are investigating more and learning more about options to run Siebel CRM in the cloud or with the cloud. So we are proud to announce and happy to announce a new series maybe. So that's the first, a Siebel Hub webinar, like Siebel Friday, completely free. And in this webinar called Siebel in the Cloud on April 13th, so mark the date, there will be announcements, of course, on all our channels, is that you can learn more about the current options in today and in the near future to run Siebel CRM in the cloud, hybrid mode, full all-in, etc. So if you're interested in, if there's any discussion in your teams about, okay, we should consider running Siebel in the cloud or hybrid mode, then this webinar might just be what you need to get started. Okay, so let me check my notes. We have announced, and I have a few more things. So first of all, Brian has kudos to Brian, and thanks very much for digging out the link to the video regarding rolling updates. That's in your chat. So you just scroll back in the chat, you will find it there. Thanks again, Brian, for this. And Brian has also agreed to join one of the next Siebel Fridays for a Q&A session on the rolling updates, which of course is good if you watch the video first before the next Siebel Friday, maybe.
Oh, and a note on that also, there's also a technical brief out there, a text version of how to do this that should get added to Bookshelf soon. If you need it now or whatever, just send me an email, brian.kelly@oracle.com, and I'll get you that document. It hasn't made it into Bookshelf yet, but it's ready to go. So it explains it. So you can watch the webinar, but you can also have the text version of it so that you can play with it. And a number of customers have successfully used it. It's past a concept at this point into something I know some customers have actually used successfully.
Okay. Yeah, you actually have to log into oracle.com for that link of yours to work, right? It's in the Customer Connect community.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I have a little poll up, as becomes a habit on the Siebel Fridays, that we publish a poll a few days in advance on YouTube. And again, as usual, please feel invited to briefly follow the link in the chat. And there are actually two polls related to cloud, of course. The first is the cloud is upon us, or isn't it? Describe your Siebel CRM cloud strategy. Just dated March 2023, so you can trace it back. There are 12 votes so far, so not really a big crowd that voted. Seems like 2/3 of those people who voted say all on-prem, it's going to stay that way, but some are hybrid, some workloads on the cloud, and all in also has been checked. So Siebel production live in the cloud. It's not saying which cloud. Of course, have a guess which cloud. So I added a second poll. If you run Siebel CRM in any form with or in the cloud, name your vendor. It's just that these polls are single choice. So you have to choose your, let's say, the biggest vendor. Of course, Oracle is in the lead, but the contenders are also up there, or you have a mixed cloud. Please use the comments to maybe let us know which cloud vendor you use and how you do it. And that's, of course, an ever-evolving topic as gets very interesting. So let me just quickly refresh this. Let's see. Okay, we have 15 votes for this now and 26 for the vendor. Okay. Yeah, so if you have time, please participate there. Of course, it's just we have that low number of votes doesn't really get us anything representative here. Just let's say it's a little bit of fun. Okay, so that is with a reminder that Andrea's details are also in the chat. Just post them again because it's back in the chat history. Andreea is happy to take your requests on anything Siebel. Yeah, her details are in the chat, and that's, I think, was an eventful and very dense Siebel Friday. I'll keep the room open if you want to stay for a while, have a chat. I'll just stop the recording for now.